Hello traders, Rich here and welcome to Kucoin as episode 9, and today we are going to analyze Bitcoin chart from scratch. It would be a good practical example where we put everything we learned together from the previous 8 episodes. So if you haven't watched the previous episodes about market structure, supply and resistance, supply and demand, trend lines, channel and so on, I recommend that you start with it before you start with this episode. And make sure to attach the entire playlist in the description below. If you don't know about Kucoin, it's one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world with over 700 billion traded volume on the platform and 10 million registered users from more than 200 different countries. Kucoin has many features like margin trading, spot trading, trading bot, mining pool, lending, staking, and many more. If you don't have an account yet, I'll make sure to attach my referral link in the description below. And if you create an account through it, you'll benefit from 20% discounts on your trading fees. So let's get started, and as usual, cheers. For those who already know and who watched the previous episodes about multi-time frame analysis, and especially the last one, episode number 8, we did a very similar like analysis, I guess about DOT. Okay, so you always start from the higher time frames, daily and weekly, to know where we are in the market. Are we overall bullish, bearish, or stuck inside a range? And it's very important to know where you are in the market because half of the work is done from these time frames. Once you know where you are, you can zoom into lower time frames and look for potential setups, where around the lower bounds we'll be looking for buy setups, and around the upper bound we'll be looking for sell setups. And you can clearly see that Bitcoin chart is very similar to this one. Anyway, let's take it step by step, right? So as price approaches the upper bound, we'll be looking for sell setups. It can be non-horizontal or horizontal, just like this one. And as price approaches the lower bounds, it can be non-horizontal as well, or horizontal. We'll be looking for buy setups. We've got 3 types of rejections. The first type is a typical support and resistance, where we have many failed attempts to break above or below a certain level or area. And here we go. We've got a support area here. Anyway, let's do it in a bit. The second type is a non-horizontal support and resistance, or also known as a trend line. The third type is a supply and demand zone. When we have an aggressive movement upward, we have a demand, and as price retested, we'll be looking for buy setups. Vice versa, when we have an aggressive movement downward, that's a supply zone. As price retested, we'll be looking for sell setups. So let's do just that, which will help us know where we are in the market from daily and weekly. So these 3 rejection areas. So the way to do it, of course, let's start with support and resistance. The first one, the way to do it is very simple. You draw a random line on your chart and drag and drop it in a way to connect as many swings as possible. Start from the top and you drag it down there. So you can see that, of course, we keep this one as it's the all-time high and around 70K, right? Round number. And you can see that it's also around the 68K. And you will notice, like now in a bit, that Bitcoin is respecting the support and resistance in terms of 10K, which are also very strong round numbers. So for example, here's our 30K. Right, you can see that price is respecting it quite well. Support, and price is currently sitting around it. Of course, you always make an offset for it because it's an entire zone and not a laser level. So let's cover these wicks here, which would be around 28K. So now, and until Bitcoin breaks below this area, we would be bullish, or we would be around a support, which is where we'll be looking for buy setups. Next, anyway, like I did like this one before the upper ones, but let's move forward. You can see that we've got a rejection here around 60K. It's not a strong support and resistance. It's just like a strong round number. So we don't really have many rejections from it, but let's keep it anyway. Okay, we've got a resistance here, broken upwards, support now, and so on. The strongest one is around the 30K. And we also got what? The 40K zone, which is a very, very strong zone. Let's do an offset 38K. Look at how strong this zone is. Resistance here, rejected downward, again, rejected downward, broken upward, acting as support now, acting as support again, and finally it's broken downward. So it's now obviously acting as what? As a resistance area. So as price approaches it, would be expecting a rejection from it. Last but not least, inside this like big range, we can see we've got the 50K zone, and of course we make an offset for it, the 48K zone. So here we go, support previously multiple times, resistance again and again, right? So this is also a very strong one. And as you can see, these are the only key rejection areas for Bitcoin. So for example, here you can't really see many attempts to break it above or below. Price isn't respecting it at all. And here we go. Also, we've got like slightly some rejection, but it's not as strong as the 40K. Anyway, if you would like, you can also keep it around like 45K or 44 points. Here we go. Like if you want 43,500. So this is a minor one. Let me make it in blue. But now we've got an idea about the major or the strongest support and resistance. Anyway, we'll focus now on this 30K zone. Of course, if broken downward, okay, the next rejection would be where? And now it's very obvious, right? So it's 30K, 40K, 50K, it's the 20K. Here we go. And it happens to be around this previous high, and we've got an explosive movement upward from this area. As you can see, inside this big bullish trend, this is the only place, if you want to call it, the only base or area where we have a consolidation bearish candles, right? So bullish, right? Multiple times. This is the only time we have a bearish candle. So this is definitely a very strong demand zone. And let's make an offset for it around 18K. Of course, if we break lower, obviously the next support would be where? 10K, exactly. Here we go, which happens to be where also many rejections from this area. Of course, it's an entire area, and the demand zone started from here. So this is a rally from here, and then we've got a base and then a rally again. So this is definitely a very strong demand and strong round number, of course. Demand support and demand support and resistance, and so on. So that now you can know that just by drawing our supply and demand zones and support and resistance, you get a pretty good idea about where you are in the market. From weekly time frame, around support, looking for buy stops, around resistance, looking for some setups, until eventually it's broken upward or downward. Now we'll be in the next floor, the lower floor or the upper floor, right? So it's very important to know where you currently are. So now we've done supply and resistance. I can't really find like more supply and resistance, that's it. And supply and demand zones, we've got this one, which is a round number and a demand zone. And as mentioned previously, we've got a supply zone here and here as well, which are still fresh, right? So price haven't really tested these ones previously. So as price approaches this area, it would not only be the 40K resistance or round number and resistance, but also a supply zone. As price approaches the upper one, it would be a resistance and supply zone as well. But I will not draw it because now it's obvious that we already have rejection. That's how you keep your chart as clean as possible. Next, which is our third type of rejections, we want to draw our trend lines, which are non-horizontal support and resistance area. Of course, you can zoom into daily, but let's keep it, oops, it's not appearing on daily. So let's make it like this. Go to the settings, visibility, click on daily. I want to see it on all time frames. So now if you zoom into daily time frame, you can see it very clearly. So that's basically it. And we can clearly see that price has been rejecting the 28-30K zone pretty well. We've got like multiple rejections from here, big wicks. And you can see lately that we've got this wick. Now, I've been posting analysis about Bitcoin for quite some time now around this area, and we don't really have much updates. We'll understand why in a bit, except that we've got this wick that price can still trade lower to fill half of it before we trade higher, just like previously multiple times. So we are bullish. The buyers are still holding their ground around the 30K unless we see a break below this area, then it wouldn't be good and it would be an overextended bearish movement, and the next rejection would be around the 20K. But for now, we are expecting a bullish movement, and it would be what? It would be a correction, not an impulse, because from a market structure perspective, we know that Bitcoin has been overall bearish since 70K. 20K. We've got our big bearish movement, correction, big bearish movement, of course, the impulse pushing the direction of the trend, which is bearish, a correction pushing the opposite direction of the trend, which is bullish, and lately we've got this big impulse movement. So now, if you follow this price action, impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse, now we are expecting this correction. And yes, we are bearish, but we are expecting a correction, which would be from around 30K to 40K. Why 40K? Because it's a resistance, the previous low here, and a supply zone where we'll see it better from daily time frame. That's it, right? A big bearish movement lower. That's definitely a very strong supply zone. So that's basically it. Anyway, let me finish the weekly time frame before we zoom into daily. We did support resistance, supply and demand. Now let's go over trend lines. For trend lines from weekly and daily, it would be for overall direction, or what I call for the overall flow, to understand or to feel where we currently are. And we are clearly bearish, right? So we want to identify the overall movement downward. It might be a channel, it might be a trend line, a wedge pattern, a rising broadening wedge, falling broadening wedge, and so on. It doesn't really matter. Don't worry about the names. Just we want to know or to feel the movement by covering the entire movement. So we can clearly see that if we connect the highs here, right? Here we go. And let's make it in brown as usual. I like to make it brown for the rejection trend lines. Here we go. I want to see it on all time frames. If we make an offset for it, we can clearly see that it's respecting the lower band, right? So multiple rejections from this lower trend line, acting as a non-horizontal support, or also what I consider an oversold area. So not only we have the 30K round number, which is also a support, which is also a demand zone, we have an aggressive movement upward, but also we have this lower trend line acting as a non-horizontal support. So we've got 4 confluences, 4 rejection zones lining up together around the 30K. That's why it's a very strong zone, and we are expecting at least a correction from it, right? Because now every bullish movement is simply a correction before the next impulse movement starts. So that's basically it. That's how you make sense of the chart. That's how with every single tool that you draw, it will help you understand where you currently are in the market better. So that's basically it. And usually when you find much on weekly time frame, you can't really add much from daily time frame, because already covered pretty all on from the higher time frame. So now what we know is a consolidation around the 30K. The bulls are trying to push hard, but they are not strong enough so far because we are still inside the consolidation. But the bears aren't taking over just yet, because for them to take over, we need to see this bearish move. In this case, it would be a correction before the next bearish impulse movement start, till around our next rejection zone, which would be around the 20K. So for now, for the buys to take over, we need to see a break above this, which I posted many analysis about it. We can see it better from H4, that we are waiting for this zone to be broken, for this range, sorry, to be broken upwards. So I don't know if you can see my alert here around 32.5K. So this is what I care about. Oops. Let me put it again down there. Here we go. And I usually like to make it precisely the same. Here we go. Okay. So now for the bulls to take over, I want to see this movement happening. In this case, the bulls would prove to us that they are taking over, and the next movement upward would start, which is the correction movement till around the 40K supply zone, resistance, and so on. Meanwhile, we would be inside the zone. And for those who are watching my analysis on TradingView and YouTube, know that previously I posted an analysis that for the bulls to take over, we need to see this. For the bears to remain in control and to keep pushing inside the range, we need to see a break below this low. But we can clearly see it, a very clean market structure, breaking above the previous high, the bulls took over. Below the previous low, the bears took over. Above the previous high, the bulls took over. So now we might have a very similar scenario like this. Until we break above this area, we would be inside a range. And for example, we might have this, a double top, or a head and shoulders, just like this one, breaking it downward, and we might trade even lower. That's why I have my alerts here. So in case we drop this low, I'll be looking to add more longs. Okay, so this is basically it from like that's how you zoom in from a higher time frame to a lower time frame. And now we have like a pretty good idea, and like look at how simple the analysis is. Just by drawing support and resistance, trend lines, you feel the overmarket. You don't really need indicators. You don't really need moving average. You don't really need RSI oversold, overbought. You can know when the price is oversold or overbought just by drawing your trend lines. We know that at the lower bounds, it's clearly oversold because previously price was moving like this, bearish, and then making correction. After this movement, which is similar to the previous one, we can expect a bullish movement. But no matter how strong a support area is, right, it can still be broken down. That's why we don't buy blindly. We always wait for extra confirmation, which is this area here. Let me make it appear on daily for us to see it better there. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I'm waiting for. Meanwhile, we are bearish, and this might be just a consolidation, just like, for example, this, a consolidation before the next bearish impulse movement start and breaking below the support area. A very similar scenario if you compare this area here to this area here. Consolidation, breaking below it, next rejection area. Consolidation, if we break lower, then moving to the next rejection area, unless we finally break higher for the correction movement to start. So when we break higher, we'll be expecting now finally a bullish reversal from a short-term perspective, a shift in momentum, bearish, bullish. We'll be expecting higher highs and higher lows until we test this area. Then here, when price breaks below the previous low, just like here, we'll be expecting the next bearish impulse movement to start and push lower. But let's take it step by step. Now around this area, looking for buy stops, waiting for this from H4, and daily it would be even better. A daily close above this area would finally confirm that the bulls are taking over. So that's basically it. Don't forget to like this video if you like the content and you would like me to keep like posting similar materials. And feel free to ask your questions or request a specific instrument that you want me to go over, a specific topic, maybe about a specific indicator, tool, about taking analysis, whatever you would like. Feel free to request it in the comment section below, and I would be happy to do it. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one.